I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands I live on. I pay my respects to the Kaurna people, elders, past and present, and honour their ongoing traditions. Welcome to the Mind Body Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Shelley Clarke. Here I talk about all things mind and body and how this relates to ourselves and our parenting. I envision a world where children are seen and heard and parents feel supported and less alone. Join me here in the power of story, expert knowledge and lived experiences. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Mind Body Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Shelley Clarke, and today's episode will be an introduction into who I am and how I came to be doing this work in the world. Where exactly to start? I've been a mother now for 10 years. This time, 10 years ago, I was just pregnant with my first and still can't believe that later this year he'll actually be turning 10. My husband and I live with our 3 children in Adelaide, Australia. He's a physiotherapist and a basketball coach, and I have my own craniosacral therapy practice and work as a parent educator and mentor. But let's start a little bit earlier so that you know a bit more about me and my background. I grew up in Renmark, which is a small country town 3 hours outside of Adelaide in South Australia, Australia. Its population is about 10,000 people, but we had plenty to do with sports and the river on the weekend, and it was a great childhood. It was a lovely place to grow up, and we as a family love going back to Renmark and spending time with family. I went on to study physiotherapy, so my passion for the body and how it works started over 20 years ago. I've worked as a physiotherapist in many different fields: sports physiotherapy, general practice, in a ski resort in Canada, which actually was a lot more snowboarding than physioing, and at the Women's and Children's Hospital here in Adelaide. I've always loved working with children, and it's no surprise to me now that my passion really is about helping parents to see their children and be with their children, because I do this work for all the children. But I really hadn't found my thing with my physio work. I hadn't found the thing that I really, really loved. My first son was born, and it was a bit of a rough start to becoming a mother. With a tough birth and painful breastfeeding start, I struggled along maintaining an exterior of managing and appearing like I was coping fine, but internally I was lost, raging. I felt alone and I was exhausted. 2 years into mothering, I took him to a craniosacral therapist. He was a little bit delayed in his speech, and I took him to see a friend who treated using craniosacral therapy. Within a few sessions, he started to string words together in sentences, and I was blown away. I was like, what are you doing? I started to train in craniosacral therapy and fell in love with the work. It was so gentle and calming, but for the first time in probably my whole life, I was able to experience my internal state, connecting with my body, and started to understand different states of being and began to feel calmer as a parent. And I felt like I had come home. And now, 8 years later, I still love the work just as much. I even remember saying to my teacher in one of my first craniosacral therapy courses, like, I feel like I've found the thing that I want to be doing for the rest of my life. And I'm really, really passionate about craniosacral therapy and all that it offers in the world. So, it was a wonderful moment to find that thing that I really love doing. But then I had my second child and things got even tougher. 2 children, no sleep, really in the trenches. Honestly, I remember walking my child around the block at 2 a.m. in the morning, thinking, why am I the only one in the world that has a child who doesn't sleep? I now know I was not alone, and I also now have a lot more tools to help parents with this exact situation. But 7 years ago, I didn't know this stuff and it was hard. Honestly, walking the child around the block at 2 a.m. because, we'd been up for hours and crying and not sleeping and everyone's sleep deprived. It is really hard. I would get really, really anxious with her crying. I couldn't handle her crying. It really stressed me out. And I was resentful. I was raging. I really did not know how to look after myself first. I remember thinking one day as I hung out the washing, is this it? Is this what I had signed up for? Is this motherhood? Is this parenting? I was extremely depleted, sleep deprived. I had adrenal fatigue, was trying to be the mother, run the household, study. I felt exhausted and stressed, and I really didn't have any access to joy, to that vibrancy, to, the part of me that was lit up before having kids. I was drained and lost. I'd lost myself in the world of mothering, like many of us do during this transition from maiden to mother through this matrescence stage. I didn't know the things I do now, and I was really exhausted. I loved my children deeply, but I had this sense of is this it? So this got me searching and seeking for solutions. I remember Googling, gentle sleep solutions, and I came across Hand in Hand and Parenting by Connect, which is often called Parenting by Connection here in Australia. I did their training, a 6-week course here with Anne Hefferon, who's been one of my mentors, and it was amazing. Within that 6 weeks, we saw huge changes in our family. Sleep returned. We actually had some nights where everyone slept. Laughter and fun started to return. I started to understand crying and listening to feelings, and I wasn't scared when I couldn't fix what was going on, and realized the power of just holding space and being present with my children, and what a huge difference this made. I loved it so much and was wanting to learn more that I did the instructor training, which was a year-long training to become a hand-in-hand parenting instructor. And I dived into the tools, the understanding, child development, and really, really immersed myself in understanding children and their behavior and how brains work, how their nervous systems work. And this really has become a passion area of mine. So I'll talk more about hand-in-hand parenting and aware parenting and the things that I've learned throughout this podcast, as well as bringing in some mind-body experts, psychologists and teachers and play therapists and occupational therapists, and really bringing in, synthesizing this information that is out there in the world. So after hand-in-hand training, I then came across aware parenting training and Marion Rose's work. So I remember Googling one day, psychosynthesis and parenting. Psychosynthesis is a type of psychotherapy training, and I was doing a lot of study in that as well. And Marion Rose came up. So I started doing her courses and really loved her work. And Marion has an amazing understanding of the mother-child connection and feelings and how they are held in our bodies. And I'll be talking to her very soon in the first few episodes. So I went on to do the Aware Parenting Instructor training, which I have been an Aware Parenting Instructor now for a few years. And I really love the Aware Parenting approach as well. I also went on to do Marion's training in the Marion method, where we're looking at love and increasing our capacity to listen to our children's feelings and also honor their autonomy. And I really found, that whole year of deep diving into Marion's work was an amazing transformative year. So we've had our third son in amongst all this training, And with this knowledge and understanding of babies and connection and how feelings and unmet needs affect sleep and affect their behavior, we've really had such a different experience this third time around. There's been much more joy and laughter and connection in our household. And I would say I am, just 3 children has been amazing with this information. I'm nowhere near as depleted. I look after myself, so much more these days than I used to when I was first a mother. So now I run courses here in Adelaide, small workshops. I also mentor parents online in any of these philosophies, and really to support parents, bringing in any of my knowledge around physiotherapy, craniosacral therapy, aware parenting, hand-in-hand parenting, the Marion method, developmental psychology, any of the things that I have, bringing all of these things together to support parents in finding their truth and finding what works for their family. So my work now is really sharing these insights and these learnings for mothers and for parents so that they can parent in the way that they are really wanting to. So what are my foundational philosophies now? Well, I see children as unique and powerful humans who deserve to be seen and loved for exactly who they are. I'm passionate about helping change the paradigm that we parent from one of power over and control and, the old school way of, do as I say, be quiet, because I said so. So from that power over paradigm to one of power with our children, respecting our children, empathy, love, compassion. So I have 6 foundational points that I probably base most of my work on. Awareness. When we bring more awareness and I bring more like a whole and integrated adult to the relationship, we're giving our children the greatest gift possible. So when we do our own inner work, a lot of my work that I want to share here on this podcast and in the world is really for parents to understand that it starts with us. It starts with our own healing, and it starts with how we are in the world. What are we bringing to the situation? What's our nervous system? What's going on in our bodies? And so really this is always the place that I start, doing our own work, becoming more aware of our own stories and our imprints and our patterning, and the way we respond to our children makes a huge difference. So a lot of this work is almost, working through the feelings that come up, the rage that comes up in us, when we lose it at our kids, or when we're feeling like we're about to lose it, or when we're wanting to yell or scream or use power over our children. What is going on for us in that moment? And I'll talk a lot more about this in the podcast with various guests and episodes that we do. And this is the work, the awareness of ourselves and coming back into our center. And I think that's a big part of it, because when we change, everything changes around us. So awareness. Next is connection. So connection really is the foundation to all of our relationships. Firstly, again, connection to our inner selves, our patterns and hurts, and our joys, our wishes and our desires. So really connecting with ourselves first, but then our connection with our children. When we focus on the relationship between us and our children, we no longer we try not to resort to. I'm not saying this. I'm certainly not saying I'm a perfect parent. There is no such thing as the perfect parent. We're all going to have moments where we are frustrated, but it's really about understanding that connection is the key. We don't need to resort to punishments and rewards and power over our children. We need to come back into connection with them. Trust. So third point is trust. Trusting our own instincts and our wisdom as a parent. Following what feels right in your heart for your family. I work with many different families, different makeups, different types of families, different neurodiversities, and really it's about finding what works with your family. There's no one right way to parent. I believe that there is what's right for you and your child, and you really know your child best. So really trusting yourself first, and then that trust extends to our children. So trusting our children. Our children know what they need. They really deeply know what they need, their interests, their passions in the world. So trusting their timing, trusting their callings, trusting what they're interested in. Love. So point number 4, every child needs to feel heard, loved, seen, understood, validated, and really deeply loved for who they are. Being held in the safety of a loving caregiver is paramount for every human. Deeply listening to ourselves and our children, to all feelings. So all feelings are welcome here. All feelings are welcome here on this podcast. All feelings are welcome for you at home when you're listening. I welcome your feelings. It's safe here. It's safe to feel. Having empathy and kindness and compassion, nurturing, respect, and belonging are all vital for ourselves as parents, but also our children. The 5th point and foundational philosophy that I work by is will. Our will is our autonomy and our authenticity, like our authentic expression of ourselves, of our unique selves in the world. And being able to follow our passions and our purpose and staying as close as we can to our true self. And really honoring our children's yeses and nos and the expression of who they are. And finally, point number 6 that I really live by is play. Our children need to play. It's their natural way of being. It's their first language. It's their first understanding of the world, allowing self-discovery through play. And really, I love encouraging parents to find the play in everyday challenges and with everyday parenting. Reclaiming our own playfulness first, and then responding playfully to our children, bringing more joy and laughter and connection into everyday interactions. I believe the way we raise our children changes the world, and I'm thankful for all of the work you are doing as a parent. It's a tough gig, but we are stronger together. My hope here with this podcast is that I bring you a conversation with a guest, an expert in their field, relating to mind and body and parenting. Some episodes it might just be me having a chat, but that we all get to learn and grow and heal together. I hope parents start to feel less alone and see their children through a new lens so that we can all feel safe and loved for exactly who we are. That we start to understand our cultural, societal, family conditioning and begin to heal the intergenerational imprints and trauma that we may be carrying. And I also hope that you feel more joy, connection, and laughter in your parenting. That you feel empowered with knowledge and tools to tackle the challenging moments with more love and grace. Thank you so much for listening today. I'll be back soon with my first guest speaker. Have a lovely week. Thank you so much for listening. I would love to know your thoughts and feelings and to continue the conversation. You can connect with me on Instagram and Facebook at _Shelley Clarke _. If you would like to keep in the loop for all my resources and offerings as they happen, you can join my mailing list at www.shelleyclarke.com. Thank you for all you are doing. Your parenting is important and powerful. Have a lovely day. Bye for now.